Coventry, England, November 1940. The sky is no longer blue. It is a canvas of fire and screaming metal. The Luftwaffe is tearing the city apart, brick by agonizing brick. Amidst the rubble stands an old man. He isn't running for a shelter. He is a fire warden, watching the horizon with eyes that have seen too much death already. The air in Coventry is thick with the scent of pulverized stone and burnt timber. Every few seconds, the ground shudders as a 500-pound bomb finds a home in the streets below. For most, this is a nightmare of German engineering, but for Henry Tandey, the sound is personal. Each explosion feels like a door slamming shut on a future he once thought he was protecting. He stands tall despite the weight of 74 medals in his memory, because he knows that the fire raining from the clouds started with a single breath he allowed a stranger to take. His name is Henry Tandey. To the world, he is Britain's most decorated hero of the Great War, a man of iron. But tonight, as the bombs fall, he feels like its greatest villain. He leans against a ruined wall and whispers a sentence that his neighbors cannot understand. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." His neighbors see a decorated veteran, a man who survived the Ypres salient and the Somme when so many others became part of the French soil. They see the Victoria Cross and assume he is a man of no regrets. But as the sirens wail, Henry's mind isn't in 1940. It is trapped in the freezing fog of a French autumn 22 years ago. He is haunted by the terrible geometry of fate, the way a straight line from a rifle barrel can curve across decades to destroy the very home he is standing in tonight. Why would a hero apologize to a dictator's bombs? To understand, we must travel back 22 years, back to a world of mud and mustard gas, to a single moment in time where the entire 20th century sat on the edge of a trigger. This is the story of the man who spared Hitler and the mercy that broke the world. September 28, 1918, the village of Marcoing, France. The war to end all wars is gasping its final, bloody breaths. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and rot. Private Henry Tandey is 27 years old. He is a small man, barely 5'6", but in the chaos of battle, he is a giant. By the time the sun began to rise over Marcoing, the earth had been churned into a gray, liquid soup. To move was to struggle. To stand still was to sink. Henry Tandey was not just fighting the German army. He was fighting the exhaustion that settles into a man's bones after 4 years of industrial slaughter. His hands were stained with the oil of his rifle and the grit of the trenches, and his mind was a blur of survival and duty. He had become a ghost among ghosts, moving through a landscape that no longer looked like Earth, but like some jagged, lunar hell. Earlier that day, Tandey had single-handedly repaired a bridge under machine gun fire, crawled into no man's land to rescue wounded comrades, and led a bayonet charge that broke the German line. He is exhausted. He is covered in the blood of friends and enemies alike. As the smoke clears for a split second, a figure emerges from the gray haze, a German soldier. He is wounded, limping, unarmed. He doesn't even see Tandey at first. Tandey raises his Lee-Enfield rifle. The iron sights align with the German's chest. This is instinct. This is training. This is what 4 years of war have turned Henry into, a machine of delete. The silence between them in that moment was louder than any artillery barrage. In the vacuum of the fog, the war ceased to exist for 10 long seconds. There was no Kaiser, no king, no national pride, only the mechanical click of a bolt and the ragged breathing of 2 tired men. Tandey could see the dirt under the German's fingernails and the way his shoulders slumped in total resignation. The German didn't reach for a pistol. He didn't scream. He simply waited for the darkness, and in that waiting, he became human. That humanity was the trap that Henry Tandey walked right into. But then, the German looks up, their eyes lock. In that split second, Tandey sees a human being, not a monster. He can't do it. Not like this. He lowers the barrel. The German nods and thanks a silent, chilling gratitude and disappears into the fog. Henry Tandey breathes out, thinking he has done a good thing. He has no idea he has just signed the death warrant for 60 million people. But who was the man in the fog? To understand Adolf Hitler, one must understand the frontier experience. To him, the trenches weren't a tragedy, they were a temple. While other men returned home broken and cynical, Hitler found his identity in the violence. He was a man who felt invisible in peace, but indispensable in war. Every bullet that whizzed past his ear without drawing blood wasn't luck to him, it was a message. He began to listen to a voice in his head that told him he was being preserved for a destiny that would dwarf the war he was currently fighting. In 1918, Adolf Hitler was a nobody, a failed artist turned message runner, but something was happening inside him. Hitler had survived gas attacks that blinded him. He had survived shrapnel that tore into his flesh. Every time death brushed against his shoulder and missed, he didn't feel lucky, he felt chosen. He began to believe in Providence, a divine force that was keeping him alive for a great purpose. When he walked away from Henry Tandey's rifle, that belief became an obsession. To Hitler, that moment wasn't an act of British mercy, it was proof that he was invincible, that the universe itself wanted him to lead. This miracle at Marcoing became the cornerstone of the Nazi religion. Hitler would later tell his inner circle that he was protected by a shield of stars. He used the story of the British soldier who lowered his gun to prove to the German people that even his enemies were subconsciously aware of his greatness. He turned Tandey's act of Christian mercy into a pagan myth of invincibility. If a man like Henry Tandey, the best the British Empire had to offer, couldn't kill him, then who could? 1938. The world is on the brink. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flies to Germany to beg for peace. He enters Hitler's mountain retreat, the BERGHOF. The BERGHOF was a place of terrifying beauty, perched high in the Bavarian Alps where the air is thin and the world looks small. It was here that Hitler felt most like a god, surrounded by the art he loved and the maps he intended to redraw. When Neville Chamberlain walked into that study, he wasn't just entering a dictator's office, he was entering a shrine to Hitler's ego. The painting of the crossroads at Marcoing wasn't tucked away in a corner. It was placed where Hitler could see it every day, a constant reminder of the moment his destiny was confirmed. There, amidst the maps of conquest, Chamberlain asks about the artwork. Hitler points to the soldier in the foreground, Henry Tandey, and tells Chamberlain, "That man came so near to killing me that I thought I should never see Germany again." Hitler asked Chamberlain to convey his gratitude to Tandey. Imagine the weight of that message. A hero in a quiet English town, receiving a "thank you" from the man who was currently burning the world. Chamberlain, a man of Victorian manners and desperate hopes for peace, was charmed by the story. He saw it as a bridge between two warring nations, a sign that even in the horror of the Great War, there was chivalry. He promised to call Tandey upon his return to London, a gesture meant to humanize the Führer. It is one of history's most stomach-turning ironies, a British Prime Minister acting as a messenger of thanks from a monster to the hero who accidentally created him. The rest of the story is written in ash. When Poland was invaded, when the Holocaust began, Henry Tandey had to live with a thought that would drive most men mad. Every headline, every death toll, every train heading east. It all led back to that 1 second in 1918, when he chose to be kind. The psychological toll on Tandey was a slow-motion collapse. In the 1920s, he was a celebrity, but as the 1930s darkened, the questions began to change. He went from being the man who won the VC to the man who let him go. He would sit in his chair at night, staring at his own hands, wondering if the blood of the innocents in Poland and France was somehow dripping from his own fingers. It wasn't a murderer, but he felt the heavy, suffocating guilt of an accomplice. Tandey tried to enlist again in 1939. He told recruiters, "I'll kill him this time." But he was too old, his body broken by the First War. He spent the rest of his life watching the very man he saved try to destroy the country he loved. He died in 1977, a hero to his nation, but a ghost to himself. When Henry Tandey passed away, the world had mostly moved on, but he never did. He requested that his ashes be returned to the very spot where he stood in 1918. He wanted to go back to Marcoing, perhaps to find the man he spared, or perhaps to finally find the peace that had eluded him for nearly 60 years. He returned to the mud where it all began, leaving us with the most haunting question of the modern age. Is it better to be a good man who allows evil to live, or a bad man who kills to prevent it? We like to think that history is made by kings and treaties, but history is actually made in the mud, by ordinary people. Henry Tandey wasn't a failure. He was a man who chose humanity in a place where humanity had died. The tragedy isn't that he was a bad soldier. The tragedy is that he was too good a man for the world he lived in. Every choice has a ripple. We just don't always see the tidal wave. This was the bullet that didn't fly.